I'm here to do a book review by the author named Kimberla Lawson Roby. Now, I read a few of her the Reverend Black series, and I found them very, very interesting. But this book right here is from her standalone books. I think I'm going to stick with standalone books, or if I do cover book reviews, it's not a lengthy series. Like, I can do 3 books tops, but if it becomes to be like 7 and 8 and above, I can't really do that. It's very, very exhausting. So yeah, I'm going to be doing that. So this book right here is a standalone book. I really love her style of writing. She's an excellent writer, very talented writer, and I like her technique. This book has 32 chapters. It only took me, I want to say, just a day, really, because technically I read 5 chapters previously the previous day, and then the next day I just finished the book. It was that good. And I love the way that she kind of like unravels things, and it's like in the end she unfolds all these webs of different events and different things like that that happens within a book. I really like that because it keeps me interested and entertained. This book right here is called Secret Obsession. When I tell you this book, OMG. This right here, this book was so good. So this book was about 2 sisters. One name is Camille and the other name is Paige, okay? Now, Camille is 2 years older than Paige. So they're kind of close in age. And Camille is married, and she kind of had not a silver spoon or treated on a higher magnitude and scale than Paige. It's just that she's older, and the parents, they loved on both of them, but for some reason I couldn't understand why their mother, she kind of did treat Camille a little bit better than Paige. And for instance, what I mean is, like, whenever Camille would accomplish, high school and go off to graduations, they would really go all out to celebrate her. And then when it came to Paige, they kind of like gave her hand-me-downs or afterthoughts. Just like when Camille graduated from high school, they purchased her a brand new car, and they gave Paige her older car. You know what I mean? Like, and it's always like that. I never could figure that out, but it is what it is. Camille's a sweetheart. Now, Camille is married to a wonderful man named Pierce. He's making close to 6 figures, and she's just a housewife, and she loves her life, but she decides that she wants to, pick up some extra activities and do little things outside of the home to kind of make her feel, not that she didn't feel an important role, but she just wanted to feel more like she was contributing more to the world than just being a stay-at-home mom. So yeah, she started picking up extra activities and things outside of the home, and for the most part she has an amazing marriage. She's been married for 15 years and she's doing well in life. They have a beautiful home. They have 2 kids, a boy and a girl. One is named PJ and the other, her name Crystal, and they are adorable kids, very well-mannered, very nice kids, raised right. But after being married for 15 years now, neither one of them have ever in everdom stepped outside of their marriage. They both have been devoted and faithful to one another, and that is so beautiful. But here lately, her husband Pierce doesn't like that she's spending a lot of time outside of the home. So he's feeling a little way about it and wish that she would come back and, just be a housewife and be just there and cater more to her family, because she kind of like, she is catering to her family, but she's just spending a lot of time outside of the home. So that's his only gripe and complaint. But other than that, they have a very successful, healthy marriage. Now, Paige, on the other hand, she's doing well. She has a wonderful job. She's making close to 6 figures as well. And she has a nice little condo, nice little vehicle, but she's kind of like getting by. You know what I mean? She's doing well, but she's not really, she's kind of like living beyond her means, living a lifestyle that she really can't keep up with. I think she's trying to keep up with her sister Camille, and she wants to have the nicer things in life, or the finer things in life, because Camille, she has lots of designer bags and clothes and this beautiful home and nice car, but she can actually afford that. That's the difference. So Paige is kind of like trying to keep up with that same lifestyle because she wants that for herself. And there's nothing wrong with wanting something for yourself, but if you are living beyond your means, it's just not good. Now, she doesn't have any kids or anything like that. Now, she is currently in a relationship with this guy named Owen. Now, Owen is a firefighter, so he's making pretty good money, but not enough money to appease or appeal to her type of taste and lifestyle with the designer clothes and bags and jewelry and all this stuff that she likes. So he's a decent guy. Now, he's in love with Paige. He loves her to death. He worships the ground she walks on. He loves her a great deal, and he wants to marry her. Okay. So, and she also has people around her who really care for her, who really love her. Now, she has a best friend. His name is Derek, and they never took it to that level. They just always were close friends. And her friend Derek is actually married, but Derek is not really faithful to his wife, and Paige kind of helps him cheat on his wife. Where she comes in at is she lets him use her condo a lot of the times when he wants to, you know, mess with one of his side pieces. She opens up her home, so she's actually condoning him cheating on his wife, and she kind of has that over his head. But you know, that's her friend. Derek is a decent guy. He's not a bad guy, but he just have a cheating problem. And then she also has a good friend named Carla. Carla is a very good friend. She just loves her unconditionally. She's always there for her. Now, Carla has her own mishaps in her life. She had a husband, or she was engaged. Yeah, she was engaged to her fiance, and I think a month after they were engaged, he got killed by a drunk driver. So she's going through that, and it hasn't even been a year. I think that happened like 6 months ago, but she's there for her friend, and Carl is a great person. So Paige does have people in her life who really, really loves her, and she's blessed to have the friends that she has. But yeah, Owen, he's crazy about her. He wants to marry her, and this is where it begins. They were sitting down talking one day, and he said, you know, we've been together for a while. I love you, and I want to marry you. And he asked her, will you marry me? And she's like, she was kind of disgusted by it because she really doesn't love him. She's in love with someone else, and been in love with this person for all of her, well, ever since this man, well, she's in love with her brother-in-law. She's in love with Pierce, and she always has ever since he's been in the picture. So she doesn't take any guy seriously. Whoever she gets with, she knows it's going to be a done deal, because she feels in her heart that her and Pierce are a better item and will be a better fit, and they are going to be married one day and live happily ever after. So she tells him, no, I can't marry you. And he was like, huh? What do you mean? I thought you loved me. And she said, you know, I do love you, but not like that. I love you, but I'm not ready to be married right now. And he was like, wow, he was devastated because here he's proposing to this woman and she just declines. And so he was like, well, um, I mean, will you ever be ready for marriage? Will you ever want to marry me? And she says, no, I'm sorry, but I love you. I care for you, but I'm not in love with you. And no, I can't ever marry you. So, of course, at this point, he's devastated. He's heartbroken. He feels some type of way. And he's just not too happy about that. But this woman, Paige, is so conniving and calculated, and she does things premeditatedly. She premeditates everything that she does. And she made sure that before, because she knew she was going to break up with him on this night, she made sure that they had rough sex, and I mean rough sex that night, because she knew that that was going to be the last that she was going to see him and be bothered with him or deal with him. So she made sure that they had rough sex. And of course, she kind of had to end things with him because he's getting serious. He asked her to marry him. She says no. He's really hurt and devastated by it. And she really didn't, I mean, she felt bad, but not really, because she didn't care anything about him. And of course he felt some type of way. He was like, well, if you knew that you would never marry me and you weren't in love with me, you didn't love me at all, then why did you let me pay for your bills? Why did you have me buy all those expensive things for you? This, that, and the third. And she was like, well, I never put a gun to your head and told you to do those things. And he was like, you might as well, which she might as well, because she was alluding or hinting around that, you know, she couldn't afford to pay her car bill and the bills were getting to be too much. And she always would throw out there how she likes certain type of bags and this lifestyle and stuff like that. So he, you know, and when a man loves you, they will present to you or apply those things that you love. And so he was doing those things that he couldn't really afford, but he was just trying to please her. So he was like, why did you might as well have told me to do those things when you were alluding around to the fact that you couldn't pay your bills and you like this and that. And she was like, well, you did those things and that's not my fault. She was just very kind of cold about it. And so, of course, he left. Now, here's where she decides, okay, I got rid of him. This is a perfect time for me to move forward with my plan to go ahead and get the man that I really, really love. This girl is crazy, and she hates Camille. This is a deep hatred. She hates the fact that her parents always treated her like royalty. She hates that she has a great life, always has. She hates the things that she has, like the material things, the lifestyle. And then you have the man that I always wanted. So she really hates her. And it's no reason for her to hate her sister, because her sister really, Camille loves Paige with everything within her. And Camille is she's blinded, like totally oblivious to this hatred that Paige has for her. She really think Paige love her because Paige always puts on this front that she really, really loves her sister. She's very supportive of her sister, but deep down inside she's just so, she wants to kill her. It's almost like the hatred is very unhealthy. Let me just say that it's so unhealthy. I've never seen a character like this character. Like, every time she sees her sister Camille, like, even though she's smiling and acting like she's so in love with her sister and loves her sister so much, inside she's saying, gosh, I can't stand the sight of her. Like, she physically wants to vomit every time she sees her sister. This is how much she hates her, because she feels like Camille has had everything handed to her. Everybody always treats her like royalty. She has everything. And Paige has nothing. She's always living from paycheck to paycheck. She doesn't have enough. Nothing ever was handed to her good. So she's feeling some type of way. So she feels like, okay, I got rid of this fool, so let me move forward to get my man. And she also wanted to wait until her niece and nephew, PJ and Crystal, were a little bit older, so that way they could handle it a little bit better when she snags their father. So she said, okay, they're about 11, 12, 13. They'll be hurt, but not as hurt as they would when they were if they were younger toddlers. So that's another reason why she kind of waited. So this fool calls Derek, her best friend, guy friend, and she says to him, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I need a favor from you. I need you to do something for me. And he was like, oh God, what? And she tells him, I'm going to stage a rape. And I want you to come over with the handgun, come break into my house, beat me up really, really bad. And I mean really bad. This got to look for real. This got to look like a real invasion and rape. And at first Derek just laughed at her. He was like, you got to be joking. And when he didn't hear her laugh back, he was like, oh, you serious? And she was like, yeah. He was like, why do you want to do this? And she told him, like, I've been in love with Pierce for years, and this will move me closer to him. This is why I'm doing this, because I love him. And he just was so taken aback by the extent that this woman was going. And he was like, I don't really want to do that. So she hangs over his head. Remember, I know about your infidelity, how you are cheating on your wife, and you really don't want me to tell your wife what's going on. So of course, at this point, when she's trying to blackmail him, he feels obligated to do it. So he says, okay. So they move forward with their little plan. And this is the same night that she broke up with Owen, the guy who really loves her. So he comes in, and I mean, he beat her up bad. Now, thank God he didn't rape her. He didn't have to rape her because, like I said, she had her boyfriend, Owen, have rough sex with him. Now, every time they have sex, they always use a condom. So she figured, like, okay, if the police come in, detectives come in, they're not going to find any evidence, because she made sure that her friend Derek had on gloves. So she figures, like, nobody's going to be traced back to this. So he goes in, does the job, and he does it well. She's jacked up. And Derek felt so bad when he was hitting her and all this and that. He felt so bad. He did not want to do it, but he did it. He left. Of course, she called the police and then hung up and called Camille. They come rushing over there and saying, oh my God, when they saw her, they just saw how horrible she looked. But when their parents, Camille and Paige's parents, got there, Camille's and Paige's mother, I couldn't understand for the life of me. It was almost as if she didn't believe what was going on. She knew that her daughter, Paige, was up to something. She just couldn't put her finger on it. She was really hoping that this really happened to her. For some reason, her mother just does not. It's almost as if her mother hates Paige or dislikes Paige. It almost feels that way. And of course, Camille was very supportive of her sister and just consoling her and just so sorry that this happened to her. Of course, she was crying and hugging her sister Paige and all of that. The detectives are in asking her question, who she think it might be and all this and that. But Paige mother was just kind of like, I don't know, she was just eyeing the situation. She wasn't as supportive and consoling as Camille. So that made me raise my eyebrow. I was like, what do the mother have against Paige? That's interesting. So anyways, of course, they have to go to the hospital to examine her, of course, like they do when you've been raped, to see if they can get any samples or any DNA. And of course, Camille suggests that Paige comes and stay with her and Pierce, because they do have a nice home and they have plenty of space. But of course, with Paige being the conniving, calculating little wench that she is, she tries to pretend like, oh no, I don't want to impose on you guys. I could possibly stay with Carla and I can stay with so and so. She had to make it believable that she didn't want to impose on her and Pierce. So she kept trying to protest, and then Camille was like, no, come on, you're my sister, I love you, you have to stay with me. And so on the inside she's like, yes, yes, I can't believe she's falling for this. So she said, okay, I will. So she's up in their house, honey. She is up in Pierce and Camille's house. And she gets in there. Of course, she loves all the attention that, he wasn't giving her too much attention. Pierce wasn't, but he was just trying to console his, sister-in-law and saying, we're here for you. I'm so glad that you're okay. We're going to catch this guy who did this to you. You can stay as long as you need. That's all she needed to hear. You can stay as long as you need. And don't worry about anything. We're going to take good care of you. That's all she needed. So she up in their house, and of course she's trying to recover and heal and get better, and she does. And of course Owen, the guy that she broke up with, he's calling back to back to back to back, but she's ignoring him. She finally answers, and he was telling her, I'm sorry that this happened to you. Why didn't you call and tell me immediately? And she was just saying, it just happened so fast. I just didn't want to call you. But then he starts saying, I really love you. Even though this has happened to you and I know we broke up, I still love you. I still want to marry you. And she was just cold. Because mind you, she thinks she's up in the house now, so she's closer to her goal. So she thinks that she's being cold to him. She was like, look, I told you that night, it still remains the same. I don't want to marry you. I can never marry you. And he was like, wow, you would think that after this happened to you, that you would have an epiphany that, we need to stick together. And she was like, no, nothing has changed. And he was just hurt by that. He was really hurt by that. So he just hung up in her face. She's like, whatever. Of course, her friend Carla is checking on her or whatnot. And she's taken time to recover, and she started healing and different things like that. She didn't want to move too quickly on making her move towards Pierce. So she kind of took her time, kind of laid low. She made sure that when she went down to have dinner and stuff with them, that she didn't sit anywhere near Pierce, that she would sit, close to her sister and different things like that, so that her sister wouldn't put two and two together. So when she starts healing, she started looking back at her appearance, and she was like, okay, I'm getting better. The bruises are gone. The swelling is going down. So she started feeling better. So Camille said, well, do you need to go get anything at home and things like that? She was like, yeah, I do need to go pick up a few things. She went to go get her computer, and she went to go get some outfits and things like that. Now, the outfits and choices and things that she got were kind of like a little bit revealing of her body, if you will. So anyways, she started fixing herself up, and she was wearing these clothes, and she made sure when she would wear these clothes that Camille was out doing her extra activities that she likes to do outside of the house. So she would put on these clothes that showed off her figure and different things like that. But the thing I love about Pierce, he never, not one time, look at her in a way that was sexual or in a way that was inappropriate. He never even complimented how good she looked. He never did. I was like, yes, Pierce, yes, be faithful. Being faithful to your wife of 15 years. I'm so proud of him. Like, he would just treat her like family. He never said, oh, you're looking good in your jeans or whatever. He never did. And she couldn't understand that. Like, Paige couldn't understand, like, dang, he didn't really notice, but she didn't think anything of it. So she decides that, okay, it's time for me to turn it up a notch. So she decides, okay, that she um went into her sister's, Camille's, room where she works, where her laptop is and everything like that. Mind you, they're all out of the house or whatnot. And she goes in there and starts snooping around. She gets on her laptop. Of course, Camille had her password and everything saved, so she was able to get in there. So what she does is started making up a fake lover for Camille by the name of William. And then she sent email to William, and then she would sign into William's account and send the email back, just corresponding these messages between the two accounts, acting as if Camille is really involved emotionally with another man named William, and that she's cheating, and now is going to the point where they want to meet up. She's just doing all of this. I said, wow, this is evil. And when she was checking, when she went into her sister's email, she saw where her sister had ordered a lot of cashmere sweaters, and they were all for her. Now that alone should have stopped you, like, dang, my sis is up here buying cashmere sweaters because she knows I love cashmere sweaters. Now she smiled at the thought of that, but that did not stop this wench from going in doing this evil stuff. And of course, like, after she emailed this William guy from Camille's email address back and forth, she deleted every trace of evidence and she sneaks out of there. And it just so happens, when you live with someone, you start noticing things. But Camille one day came in and checked on her sister or whatever. And she was like, can I talk to you about something? And of course, Paige was like, sure. And she was like, well, I don't know, I think something's going on between my husband and I. Now, Paige is just leaping for joy because she was like, oh, my job is going to be easier than I thought because they have marital problems. I never knew that they had marital problems. I'm here for this tea. So she was like, well, what's going on? And she was like, well, I've been spending a lot of hours outside of the home doing other things, and my husband I don't know, I don't think he's taking that too well, and I kind of feel bad. It's not that I don't appreciate being a housewife or that I don't love my kids or my job as a wife, but I just been feeling like I needed to do something extra, and it's starting to take a toll on us. I feel like we're being distant because of it. And of course, Paige is going to encourage her sister to keep doing that because she wants to cause problems between Pierce and her. So she says, you know what, you shouldn't have to, don't feel bad about doing things outside of the house. If your husband really loves you, he will support that. She said, you keep on doing what you want to do, and I think your husband will understand. I think he will. And she was like, well, yeah, maybe you're right, but I still feel bad about it. I think I will reconsider what I'm doing, though. I think I need to cut back. She was like, he will. Paige was like, he will understand. If he really loves you, he will understand. And you shouldn't, put your happiness on a back burner. So of course her sister was like, I'm sorry for bombarding you with my issues. I just wanted to talk to someone, and I trust you, and I love you. Now, Camille don't know that this girl hates her, but that's neither here or there. So she hugs or whatever or whatnot. And so Paige is like, oh, this is going to be easy. Let me turn this up a notch. Now, I know that they've been having marital problems. They're kind of distant. They ain't been making love, really. She's been busy. I just so happened to send the email. I just needed a perfect time to send this to her husband, Pierce. So she feels like, okay, now is the time for me to send this email. So she sends the email to Pierce. Okay. Now, of course, the mother calls Paige to check on her. She really didn't want to check on her, but she just had a little ray of hope that maybe this actually happened to her. So when she found out that Paige was still in Pierce's and Camille's home, she said, what I want you to do is get up out of their house, because with you, I don't trust you no further than I can see you. You need to come up out of their house, because I know you're up to something and you don't need to be there. Now you need to get up out that house. And of course, Paige didn't like that, and she knew that it was only going to be a matter of time before her mother started trying to mess up her plans by putting a plug in Camille's ear that, hey, you need to get your sister up out of that house. That seed demon. That's what she always called her, the evil seed. And I'm like, why is the mother doing this? But I'm going to get to it later on why she's doing this. And so she was like, whatever. She just they hung up. They don't see eye to eye. They do not like each other. And because her mother don't really believe that happened to her. She can't put two and two together, but she knows her daughter. Like I said, she calls her. She said, you're the evil one. Even though I had you biologically, you're the evil seed. And they just hung up. And I was like, dang, that's really hurtful. I kind of felt bad for Paige. And I wanted to know or get to the bottom of why do the mother kind of hate her a little bit. So anyways, she was like, okay, now I gotta turn it up a notch, so I'm gonna send that email to Pierce, and that way that will put doubts in their marriage, their relationship, everything they worked on, they built, the trust, all of that can be broken. I need to move quick because my mom is on to me, and I just need to go ahead and do this. So she sends it. And of course, Pierce is livid. She hear them arguing. And of course, Camille is crying to her husband saying, oh no, honey, I did not cheat. I'm not cheating. I didn't send that. I don't know no William. I've never heard of him. I would never do that. Like, you have to believe me. Pierce is not having any of it. He was like, it came from your email, from your computer. What do you mean you don't know anything about it? You're just sitting here lying to me over and over. You're lying to me. I mean, it looked like she sent it. She did send it. But she said, I don't know how this has happened. I didn't send Jack. I don't know what you're talking about. You know I love you. I would never cheat on you. I would never even converse with another man. And Paige is just in her room listening to this, and she's just tickled pink, like, yes, it's working. I'm going to get closer to having Pierce all to myself. And she's just so happy. And of course, Pierce, he storms out of there. And when he leaves, you know, she hears her sister just crying and bawling. And of course, she comes out and act like she don't know what's going on. And she was like, what's going on, sister? She was like, I don't know what's going on, but somebody is corresponding with some guy named William, pretending that they're me. And she said, I promise I would never cheat on my husband. I would never send any emails. I don't know what's going on, but this is so weird. I don't know how this has happened. And of course, Paige is like, oh my gosh, I believe you. I know you're telling the truth. Don't worry about it. Oh my gosh, that's horrible. And she started saying little things that her sister didn't like, because she was like, you know, gosh, he's been married to you all this time. You would think that he would believe you. And then she said, well, you know what they say, when a person tries to accuse you of something, they're doing something. And when she heard Paige say that, Paige tried to act like, oh God, maybe I went too far. In her head, she was thinking this. And Camille was like, I don't appreciate you saying that about my husband. My husband would never accuse me of cheating, and he wouldn't be cheating on me either. So I don't like how you're alluding to the fact that he could possibly be cheating. And she was like, oh, I'm sorry. You know how much I love you. I'm just protective over you, and I'm always going to be in your corner. I'm sorry I said that. And of course, Camille was like, yeah, I know that you love me and you're my sister and you're looking out for me, but he wouldn't do that. I just got to get to the bottom of what's going on. And so she starts thinking, okay, well, they're at odds with each other, because Camille kept trying to call her husband over and over and over, and he would not answer her phone calls, none of that. So Camille asked Paige to call Pierce to see if he would answer. Of course, on the second ring, he picked up and he was like, "Hey, what's up?" And she was like, "Hey, Camille was trying to reach you." And of course, as soon as he heard Paige say Camille, he was like, "I don't want to talk about it. No, I'm hanging up now. I don't want to talk about it." So he hung up, and she's just crying. The way that Paige, I don't see how she could sit there and watch her sister cry, not eating, stressed out, knowing that she is the culprit back behind what she's doing. And she was just so happy inside. Like, didn't feel an ounce of sympathy for her sister, didn't care that she was hurting in pain. All she could think about was Pierce and how they were going to have that house and how she was going to change some things around in the house that she didn't like, and how the car that she was driving was going to be hers, how those bags and her clothes was going to be hers. That's all she could think about. At that point, I said, wait a minute. This is beyond hatred. This is something deeper. I said she might need to be mentally evaluated, but I kept reading. And so, of course, Pierce is not speaking to his wife. So he calls Paige. And of course, Paige was so happy when she saw his name on her phone. And he was like, I just had to call you because I just need to get to the truth. And I want to ask you something. I want you to be honest with me. Is Camille having an affair on me? Do you know anything about this William guy? And of course, Paige was like, no, what are you talking about? And then she kind of like paused in a way where, as to say, like, she's my sister. I don't want to tell on anybody. So, of course, he was like, I know you know something. Tell me, like, please. I just want to know the truth. If I am wrong and maybe this mistake has happened, somebody else did this by sending out this email, I could just drop it and let it go, because part of me do believe my wife, but I just need to know the truth. Is she having an affair? I just need you to tell me. And she was like, well, I don't want to get involved. If I do tell you, you have to promise me you will not repeat this to my sister and this and that. And he was like, I promise, just tell me the truth. And she was like, yes, I've known it all along. And she told me, and I knew about it, and I didn't know how to tell you. And he was like, dang, I knew it when she was spending all that time away. I mean, I didn't really believe it, but part of me believed that it could possibly be another man. And oh, he's so hurt, so devastated. And then Paige started saying, as much as I love my sister, she doesn't deserve you. Anybody that can cheat on you, a good man like you, you're a good man and you deserve better. And she doesn't even deserve you. She's not even worth nothing. And when Pierce heard Paige talking like that about his sister, he couldn't figure it out. Like, he was like, that ain't good. But then that thought quickly went away when she said, I love my sister, don't get me wrong, but I hate when a woman cheats on a man, and you're my brother-in-law, and you're a great guy, and I love you. And so that caused that thought, whatever he was thinking, to just like go out of his head. And so he was like, yeah, you're right. At this point, he's hurt, so he's agreeing with anything she's giving him because he needed to be consoled. So he was like, well, thank you for telling me. I can't believe this. We definitely going to have to be separated after this. And so they hang up, and she's happy. She is so happy. And now she feels like, okay, my work is done. That's what I wanted. I wanted him to get out of the house, and I wanted them to be separated, and this, that, and the third. And I'm happy. But mind you, this investigation is going on with her rape. They're trying to find this rapist who raped her. They're trying to get to the bottom of it. And of course, they're still working on that. But she has done a 360-degree turnaround now that she knows that she pretty much caused division between Camille and Pierce. And so at this point, she feels like, well, I got what I wanted. They're separated. He's out of the house. So my work here is done. But then, Camille was telling her, my husband, he was thinking and he's going to come by the house and we're going to talk about it. Because at first he was thinking to separate and different things like that. But now he has done some thinking and he's going to come home and have a chance to talk to me. He's going to come home before the kids come home so that him and I can be alone to talk. And she was like, uh-oh, okay. Now I got to turn it up a notch because she didn't like that. They could possibly reconcile their differences. So what she does, she decides, well, I'm going to get up out of here anyway. I'm going back to my condo. I'm going to go back to my crib because my work here is done. But before I leave, I'm going to make sure I go out with a bang. She has a dozen roses sent to the house when she knew Pierce was coming home to talk to his wife, with a note saying, I'm so glad, this is William, your dearest love. I'm so glad that we had that conversation and that you finally decided to divorce your husband and be with me. Now, of course, when her husband saw that, you're caught. Because what fool will send you red roses with talks about you leaving your husband? How did he know that we were having marital problems and different things like that? So that was a straw that broke the camel's back. He's out of there. And he's out of there for good. And of course, as Paige was leaving the house, because she was leaving to go back to her condo, and she had already told Camille that she needed to go back and they needed to work on their marital problems. Of course, Paige is just happy inside that Camille is crying. Camille pulled up when Paige was about to leave. And Camille was like, I really need you right now. Like, I know it's kind of selfish for me to want you to stay, but I really need you right now. And of course, Camille is just ready to get back to her crib. She was like, I know, but you and Pierce, you guys need to work it out. And besides, I've overstayed my welcome. And this is a time where you and him need to be alone to work out your problems. I don't need to be here right now. So she goes home. And she goes home and start ordering up every negligee in Victoria's Secret, because she thinks that, oh, I done the damage. Damage is done, so I'm about to get my man. So she orders all this Victoria's Secrets and all of this and that. That comes, and of course, Pierce and his wife are not talking, but Pierce would call Pierce to check on him, and he would appreciate it. And she didn't make it so obvious because she didn't want to make it too obvious, not too soon. She's just glad that the damage is done. They're not talking. They're separated and things like that. And she's calling to check on him. And then one day he called her and she was like, hey, what's up? And he was like, none, I just needed someone to talk to. I appreciate you reaching out to me and you've been calling me and things like that. And so Paige was like, well, what's going on in your marriage? Are you guys going to work it out? And he was like, no, but I am going to see them before I go on my trip. I got a trip I need to go to for business in Las Vegas. Now, Paige is quick on her feet. So she says, oh, you do? That's strange because so do I. I have to be in Las Vegas for a client because I'm helping him with some commercial deals or different things like that. And he was like, oh, wow, where are you staying? At first, she said a different hotel. And then he said where he's staying. And she said, oh, wow, well, maybe when we get out there, we could just link up and have some dinner and catch up and stuff. And Pierce says, okay. So this heifer hangs up the phone and makes reservation on the flight and booked a hotel at the same hotel this Negro was staying at. And then her friend Derek calls her. And he was like, hey, what's going on? She was like, hey. He was like, you sound happy. She said, I am because I'm about to go on this trip. And I'm going to finally be with Pierce. And we're going to make love and be together. And he's going to finally divorce Camille. And we're going to live happily ever after. And Derek is like, man, you really should stop what you're doing. It's not going to end well for you. I'm really concerned about you. And you know what? I regret, agreeing to do this little whole rape thing that you had set up. I really regret doing that. And she didn't like that. She was like, wait a minute. You're supposed to be my friend. And you're supposed to be happy for me. Why can't you be happy for me? Finally, something will work out for me. Finally, him and I can be together. And he was like, this just ain't going to end too well. Like, you need to stop. You know how much he loves Camille. And you know it will never work out for you. And she didn't too much appreciate that. So anyways, she hangs up with him. And then her phone rings again and she thinks that it's Derek again. But it was in fact Owen, the guy that she broke up with. And he calls her and he was like, Camille, I really, really love you. I care for you. And, I don't appreciate how you just tossed me to the side. You treated me coldly. You treated me badly, but I'm in love with you. I can't help it and different things like that. So at this point, she's really being mean because she feel like I'm about to go to Las Vegas, get my man, and we're going to be together. So I'm going to have to play hardball with this dummy. So she says to him, look, I told you that I don't love you. I never will. And that's that. And then he says something that was very eerie. He said, you be careful how you treat people because you never know what a person can do when they're in love. And she hangs up on him. She was like, whatever. So she's still trying to get ready for her little trip or whatever, and this and that and the third. And she's in there making her some food and preparing her sandwiches and thinking of how much fun she gonna have in Las Vegas with this guy and different things like that. And so she hears a knock on her door and she was like, dang, who is this? Because I'm not expecting anyone. And it's Owen. And when he came in, when she opened the door, he just came in, walked right past her. And she was like, you're crazy. What are you doing here? And he was just talking crazy, like, what do you mean? What am I doing here? I'm here because of you. And she was like, wait a minute. What is that smell? Have you been drinking? He said, if I have been drinking, it's because of you. I haven't really been myself because a person like you little wench, you used me, you abused me, you took my love for granted. He said, I want every dime back. I want every dime. Where's the money? Give me some money. I want $7,000. And she was like, I don't got it. Like, everything you did. I didn't ask you. He was like, bump that. I want all my money back. And so he started going through her purse, pulled everything out her purse. And when he pulled everything out her purse, he saw this picture, okay? It was of Camille and Pierce and her. But the crazy part about it, she had Camille's face blacked out. And when he saw that, even though he was drunk, he was full aware of what was happening. He was like, oh, what is this? You obsessed with your brother-in-law? You in love with your brother-in-law? Because this looked like some Fatal Attraction stuff to me. And she was like, what are you talking about? You're drunk. You're crazy. He was like, no, you got your sister's face blacked out and marked out. And it's just only you and his face. He was like, you know what? This is the reason that you don't want to marry me is because you in love with your brother-in-law, with your sister's husband. And of course, she knew that was true. She couldn't deny it. So he had the picture in his hand and she snatches it out of his hand. He was like, I should have known all along. He was like, but you know what? Now I got something on you and I'm going to tell Camille, your sister, just what's been going on. Or I could tell Pierce what's going on because they always got along whenever they would go around each other. And so she was like, whatever, get out. So she managed to snatch the picture out of his hand, but still, he knew what he saw. So she figures like, okay, he was drunk. He's not going to say anything. I'm not worried about him. So anyways, it comes time for her to go on the trip, to go out there where Pierce is. She get out there, she gets in her little suite that she thinks will be near him. And sure enough, she got the suite that was near him. She goes there, he calls her, and they met up that night she made sure she was looking good too. She had this red dress on. It was tight fitting. She made sure that she was showing every curve, just looking good, had her breasts pushed all up, everything like this. And so the place where they went to have dinner, it was, the ambiance of it was very romantic. It was a very romantic setting. But here's what I love once again about Pierce. Even when he saw how good she was looking, he did not one time say, "Wow, you look good." Not one time, not one peep, not one time. But as they're sitting there having dinner, it was just awkward. There was an awkward silence. So she broke the silence and said, "Wow, this is really a nice place." And they get to talking and they order their food. Now, Pierce is not a drinker. He started drinking. And they're eating and continuing, and he ordered another drink, then another drink, then another drink. So he had a total of 4 drinks. At this point, he's drunk, okay? He's inebriated. He is intoxicated and he's drunk. So she was like, "Oh my God." And so when you drunk, you start saying things. And he said, "You know what? You really look beautiful tonight." And she was like, "Really?" He was like, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, you always look beautiful to me." She was like, "Well, how come you never said anything?" He said, "Well, with me being married, you don't make it a habit to tell another woman that she's beautiful, especially in front of your wife." And she was like, So, but she's tickled pink that he finds her attractive. Like, finally, for once, he finally said she looked beautiful, but he was drunk, okay? So she has to help this Negro up to his room. And he's kind of like staggering and all this and that. They get up to the room. He couldn't even put his key in. She helped him put the key in. And when they went inside, Pierce started breaking down crying in her arms, just bawling, saying, "I love Camille. I still love her. I don't care that she cheated. I need to make it right. I need to work on my marriage. I'm so hurt. Why would she do this to me? Why would she betray me?" And so Paige took this opportunity to go in for the kill. She kissed him. She kissed Pierce. And they ended up, honey, they ended up having sex. I just couldn't. I was so mad. I know he was drunk, but he knew what was going on. And in that moment, I know he was feeling like, I need to get revenge. I'm hurt. I'm sad. I'm angry. Why not? He didn't stop it. They kissed. They had sex. Laid up all night. I don't know how many times they did to do that night. The next morning comes. She's just basking in them. She think that they made love. She think that they're about to be together. They're going to come clean, tell Camille what they did. And he filed for a divorce and she becomes his wife. She's thinking all this. So she rolls over and says, "Hey, baby." And he kind of like was cold towards her. And she was like, what's going on? "Didn't you enjoy last night? We made love." And he was like, "What? What we did last night was make a mistake that I regret and I should not have done. I was drunk, but that's no excuse. I still had full knowledge of what I did. What we did can't happen again. I'm sorry. I love my wife and I need to work it out in my marriage." And she was like, wait a minute. Don't say that. You don't mean that. You love me." He was like, "What? I mean, I love you, but like a sisterly type of love, not like that. I'm not even attracted to you or anything like that." She was just devastated. Like, "No, don't say that. Don't speak like that. Don't talk to me like that. You don't mean that. You do love me. You know that we're a better fit. You know that you love me. Otherwise, you wouldn't have slept with me." He said, like, again, "I was drunk and we should not have done that." And she tries to go over and hug him and he pushes her off of him. He was like, "Look, what's wrong with you?" She was like, "What do you mean? I'm the one for you. Don't tell me you're going to go back to Camille and try to work things out with her. Remember, she cheated on you." He was like, "At this point, it doesn't matter. I love my wife." And she said, "But you love me. You don't know what you're saying." He said, I don't love you." And she was like, "Well, you told me last night that you were attracted to me, that I'm attractive, and you slept with me. He was like, you are attractive, you are beautiful, but I'm not attracted to you in that way. The only woman I love in that way is Camille. And of course, she tries to just, oh, she's like a begging dog gnawing on a bone at this point. And she's trying to touch him and hold on to him. He was like, look, get up out of my room. And he started pushing her and putting the robe on her because she had took the robe off. She's just desperate at this point. And he kind of like had to push her out of the room. And she was like, don't do this. You know that we had this attraction all these years, and you know that you really love me, and don't do this, don't do this. And he just had to shut the door on her. And at this point, she felt used, she felt rejected. She was feeling how she made Owen feel. This is what she did to Owen, but now the tables have turned. This is happening to her. She's left out in the cold and being used and abused. And so she went back to her room and she's just crying. She didn't sleep all night. She was just up tossing and turning, thinking about this Negro. She started smoking a cigarette. She don't even smoke cigarettes, but she started smoking a cigarette, still trying to call him. He's not answering. And she just said, you know what? I'm just going to let him sleep on it. He'll come to his senses in the morning, and he'll realize that we were making love and he does love me. And he'll realize that Camille is not the woman for him, and he'll go and tell her the truth, and we'll go on and get married and different things like that. And so as soon as she wakes up, she called his room. He wasn't answering, like a voicemail came on or something like that. She was like, And then she calls his cell. He does answer, but he was being very cold. And she was like, where are you? She heard him say something about his airport or his luggage or something. And she was like, where are you? He was like, I'm at the airport about to go home. I'm about to make things right with my wife. What do you mean? And she was like, listen, you don't know what you're doing. It's me that you love. Don't go back to her. She doesn't care anything about you. She doesn't love you. I love you so much that I would do anything. I would die for you. This is what she says to him. And he was like, you're sick. Like you're something's wrong with you. Like you're sick in the head to even say that. And you have to remember, this is your sister's husband. Like are you serious? And he was like, I'm tired of explaining this to you. We have nothing. We never had nothing. I've never been attracted to you. I don't even love you. What we did is a mistake, and it cannot happen again. What happened in Vegas stays in Vegas, and that's that. And he hung up on her. And at this point, she is fuming, mad. Now she feels like, okay, I have to turn it up a notch because Camille is the reason why he is confused. He is confused at this point. He don't know what he's saying, and she's the reason. She was like, I don't want to have to hurt her, but I'm going to have to do something because she's in the way. She started thinking of, she did kind of contemplate, I need her to be gone. Like she doesn't need to exist anymore because she's in the way. She's the reason why it's taking so long for this plan to work out, because we made love last night and it was wonderful. It was beautiful. I'm tired. We need to have our happily ever after. We need to have everything work out for us. She doesn't need anything else handed to her. She's had everything all her life. She's had everything handed to her, and it's time for that to end. She's thinking all of this. Just thinking all of this. She hates that woman. She hates her sister. And so, of course, her sister called her, and at this point, she's angry. She kind of yelled into the phone, especially when she saw that it was Camille. And Camille was like, are you okay? What's going on? I hadn't heard from you. And she was like, oh, I'm just kind of irritated with this little deal with my client. I don't mean to yell in the phone or whatever, but she was fuming mad that you're the culprit as to why Pierce is on his way back to you, crawling back to you. And she was like, what's up? What do you want? She was like, nothing. I hadn't heard from you, and I just wanted to talk with you. And besides, I just can't get over who this mysterious person was that hate me so much. Like, they had to have hated me so much to formulate this plan, especially with this email corresponding back and forth with me, pretending to be me. She said, that just, I'm going to look into it. So I'm going to hire a computer whiz to figure out what's going on, a computer expert. And at this point, she's feeling a little nervous. Like, dang, they could possibly trace this back to me. So she's nervous about that. So she kind of calms down. And she was like, well, look, I got a client and I got to go. So now she's feeling desperate. She's like, okay, he's on his way to work things out with his wife, and ain't no telling if he's gonna break down and tell her what we did. So she's panicking at this point. She's paranoid. So, anyways, she receives a phone call. Okay. And it is her best friend, Derek. And he was like, where are you at? She was like, why? I told you I was in Vegas or whatnot. And he was like, look, you ain't gonna like what I'm about to tell you. She was like, what? What? He said, well, my wife overheard our conversation about the stage of the raping, me cheating on her, you being in love with your brother-in-law, being in love with Pierce, and she's angry and she's mad at me and she's about to tell Camille. So you might as well go ahead and tell her yourself before my wife does. She hasn't told her yet, but your cover is blown. And she was like so pissed off. She was like, oh my gosh, how could you be so careless as to not make sure no one was listening? Or, well, how could you do this? And he was like, this is not my fault. Like, this is all you, and you need to fix this. I'm just giving you the heads up that my wife knows, and she's about to tell Camille. So she hangs up with him. And now she was like, oh God, my cover is about to be blown. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? So she gets back. And when she gets back, she hadn't heard from Pierce 2 days after they made love. So she thought in her head, they made love and all this and that. She kept calling his office, come to find out that he hadn't been there in a few days and that he was coming back on a Wednesday. She was like, dang, I know why he's not there. He's up with Camille, up with her. She's with my man, and he can't think straight because he's up under her. So what she does is, gets in touch with Camille and say, hey, you want to come out and let's go shopping and different things like that. Okay, because this is her final plan. What she does is she picks up her sister, and they go to get coffee, and they're going to have drinks, and they're going to shop and do all this and that for the day. And she decides, when she went in to get the coffee, she made sure no one was looking, but she put 3 sleeping pills in her coffee. Okay. Of course, Camille drinks it because she drinks all of it because she loves coffee. Then she started feeling sleepy. She gets sleepy. She puts her in the passenger seat, and she takes over at this point. She goes to a rinky-dink motel. Now, she had hired, basically, she found someone off of the street who she knew would want to make a quick buck or whatever. And she had to make this believable because she knows that Camille wouldn't just mess with anyone. And if Pierce were to see who this William guy was, she knew that she had to make this bum look decent. So she went out, bought him a nice suit, cut his hair, had him shave and shower and all this and that, look presentable. It's got to look for real. And she told him that, okay, what I want you to do is all you have to do is just sit on the bed and look like you just had sex with Camille, have your shirt open. And, of course, you don't really have to have sex. She's already out like a light. I'm just going to lay her down, unbutton her shirt and all this and that. And all you have to do is sit on the bed and just wait. And he was like, now, I'm not going to get in trouble or anything like that, am I? And she was like, no. And he was like, well, if her husband comes, is he going to be angry? Is he going to punch me, or is he going to try to hurt me? She said he may, possibly hit you or something like that, but you don't have anything to worry about. And he was like, well, if he's going to hit me, you're going to have to up it 100, because she only was going to give him 100, but he wanted 200. So she ended up paying him $200. And he was like, oh, and what is your name? And she was like, Trish. And so she leaves out. Then she calls Pierce. And he picked up, and she was like, hey, he was like, what do you want? And she was like, I know you don't want to hear from me, but I got some important news that I need to bring to your attention. Remember the William guy? I know where she is right now. She's at a motel with him right now. You need to go check it out. And of course, with him hearing this and he sees physical evidence, of course he's going to go check it out. He said, you better not be lying. Sure enough, he goes to the motel, and she's laid out on the bed. And of course, he beat, his name was Leonard. That was the bum name, Leonard. He beat him up. Not too bad. And the wife is just laid out there, and she didn't understand, and she didn't know what was going on, like later on in the day, how she got there. Of course, her husband is fuming mad. He's hurt. He sees the physical evidence that this is William and all this and that. And he just cannot believe this. And of course, he's going to be fussing at her. He's mad at her and all this and that. And then, of course, Camille is confiding in Paige. And she was like, that's horrible. Like, wow. Like, I don't know how you don't remember anything, because she said, well, I remember. Camille was like, the only thing I remember is when we had coffee, and then after that everything else is a blur. And Paige even had the audacity to say, have you ever thought maybe you're sick or something like that, like your memory is at risk here, like something's going on with your memory if you don't remember that. And Camille, she would never suspect that her sister was the one who drugged her, as to why her memory is a little foggy. And she was like, yeah, maybe you're right. Like, maybe something is going on with my memory, but this is strange because this has never happened to me before. Maybe that explains that maybe I didn't remember sending out the emails and meeting up with this guy. I just don't remember any of that. She was like, I don't think anything's going on with my memory. It's just a blur. And Paige was like, yeah, you might need to go get that evaluated or whatever. And so Paige leave, of course, and she's just happy. She's just so happy and feeling like, yes, they're finally going to get a divorce. He's going to come to his senses and all this and that. So I think a day goes by, and of course Owen called her. She was like, what do you want? He was like, I want $7,000. I need you to get it. I need you to get it. If you don't, I'm going to tell your sister about the picture I saw, and I'm going to spill the beans. And she didn't want that. She didn't want her cover blown. So she was like, can you just give me a day or two, and I promise you I will have it. So he decides that he wanted to just give her that. He said, but after that, if you ain't got it, then that's it. I'm telling. So she hangs up, and she don't have it. She can't take out any credit loans because her credit is shot. She don't even have it in the bank. I think she only had $1,500 to her name. She just ain't got it. The girl is not doing too good, because she spent all that money on the Victoria's Secret, the flight, the room, all this and that. It's just not worth it, if you ask me. But anyways, so what ended up happening, of course, the detectives and different people like that, the police, they were still keeping an eye out on the situation, but I think they had dropped it. But what ended up happening, her cover was blown. The little homeless guy that she had hired, he ended up going to the police, telling them everything that she had done. And the reason why he knew her real name is because he overheard her in the bathroom talking on the phone with someone, and she said her name was Paige. But even though she told him Trish, she didn't think that he heard her say her real name. So that's how he was able to tell them everything. Actually, when Pierce talked to the homeless guy or beat him up or whatever, the homeless guy ended up confiding into Pierce and telling him everything that Paige did. And then, of course, Pierce they took that information to the police. And then not only that, her best friend, Derek, ended up calling Camille and telling Camille everything about Paige having that picture, being obsessed with her husband, sleeping with her husband, all of this. She told everything, staging the rape. No, she didn't tell her the part about sleeping with Pierce. She staged the rape and how she was obsessed with her husband and in love with her husband. She told her that part. So that was blown. And then, thank God, Owen ended up calling Paige and telling her, you know what? You ain't even worth it. Just forget everything. I'm not even going to worry about you anymore. Just forget that $7,000. You're a lost cause. Goodbye. You're not even worth it. So she was glad about that. And so her cover was blown, and she was on her way over to Camille's house. When Camille opened the door, she just didn't have that smile that Paige was so used to, but she didn't think anything of it. She was like, "What's going on?" And so Camille was like, "How could you? Why do you hate me so much?" She was like, "What are you talking about?" She said, I know about everything. I know about the picture. I know about you being obsessed with my husband, wanting my husband from the very beginning and the first time you laid eyes on him. I know about you staging the rape so you can come in and be closer to my husband. I know about everything. She was like, "What are you talking about? That's a lie. You don't have any proof." She said, "I do. You know, your niece who loves you so much. You were her favorite auntie. She saw you sneaking out of my room one night, Crystal. And she knew then that, dang, she's caught." And she was like, "You've had everything handed to you. Everybody loves you. You have everything. And I've never had nothing. Nothing was handed to me. The parents always loved you. They never loved me," and blase, blase. And she was like, "What are you talking about? We do love you. I love you. You have friends who love you. You had a man who loved you." And that still wasn't enough. And so the parents were coming on their way too. So in walks the parents. And of course, their mother now this is why she hates her daughter. Her mother comes in and she said, "I knew when you was up in their house that was a bad idea. You are an evil seed. You are evil. And you always hated your sister." And of course, the husband never says nothing to his wife. But he tries to step in. She was like, "No, I need to say this." And she said, "You're just like your father. He raped me. Your father raped me. He was incarcerated, but it's a good thing he died in prison, like you're going to die in prison because you're going to jail for everything you did. To think that you would conjure up a plan with your rape and how you're obsessed with your sister's husband, your brother-in-law, and all this and that." And this is new to Paige. Paige did not know that they only shared the mother. Her and Camille only shared the same mother, but different fathers. So this was the first time that Paige heard that her real father was in fact a rapist who had raped her mother, who was incarcerated and who died in jail. So she's heard, she was like, "No, don't tell me that's not true." And she was like, "It is true." And she said, "You guys knew all along and didn't tell me?" And the father, he felt bad. He was like, "You've always been my daughter. I did always know, but that's okay. I always loved you. But this is why her mother hates her, is because she was raped and she got pregnant by her rapist. And this explains why her daughter is behaving the way that she's behaving, is because she has a mental disorder. And this is why her mother didn't treat her right, gave her hand-me-downs, why she treated Camille better. And in that moment, when I found out the real reason why the mother hated her, I felt sorry for Paige. I really did. Now, the father never treated her any different. The father loved her, and like I said, Paige had friends who were around her who loved her and cared for her, and she had a sister who adored her and who loved her. But she never got the love from her mother, because her mother hated her because she hated being raped. And then I had this child. She said the only reason why I kept you is because I couldn't live with myself with giving up a child that really belonged to me. That's the only reason why I kept you. If it were up to me, you wouldn't even be here. And that hurt me, because it's not this child's fault that she was conceived in this world in the way that she was. It's not her fault. So you should have loved on that child, even though she had nothing to do with any of her reasonings for being here. She should have still been there for her daughter. So the mother needs some counseling as well. But that broke my heart, and I began to feel sorry for Paige, and I felt really bad for Paige because of how she was brought in this world. This explains why she was obsessive and in love with her sister's husband, and why she was doing the conniving things that she was doing, the malicious things that she was doing. All of that stuff, it just was horrible, and this explained it. In that moment, I felt sorry for her, and so did Camille. And her cover is blown. So then when she tries to leave, the detectives are both there, and they tell her she's under arrest and all this and that. And I felt bad for her. But what ended up happening, she went to go get evaluated, and she kind of got exempt from being locked up in prison, because she does medically have something mentally wrong with her. She has what is it? Not a delusion disorder. She's delusional. So, and she has to take medication for it. And I felt so bad, but at least she knows now that she was actually sick in the head, and that it was not just solely jealousy. It was deeper than that she really had a delusional disorder, and it was something mentally wrong with her, and it was a medical issue. So I'm glad that she didn't go to jail. I'm glad that she ended up getting counseling. I'm glad that she ended up on medication. And I'm glad that she still had her friend Carla. She stayed with her friend Carla because she ended up losing her condo. She ended up losing her executive job. She ended up losing everything that she owned. But she ended up kind of like having the puzzles to the missing pieces from the puzzles put back together. And she became normal again. She became normal again and sane, even though she had to be on medication. Now, her sister Camille did forgive her, and she still loves her the same. Now, Pierce, he's gonna need some time. He don't really feel nothing for her or about her. So I'll give it time, and he will come around. But she just did too much to try to destroy their marriage. And even though, and you know what? If I was put in that position, I will forgive my sister too, if I knew that she had a mental disorder, that it was deeper than just jealousy. I would be able to forgive her too. So this book was so super juicy, and I like that it touched on mental health and different things like that. Man, I just knew something was wrong, though, when the extent that she was going and how obsessive she was. I said, no, this is something psychological. She needs to go get evaluated. I knew it was something deeper. It just hadn't unfolded yet. So that's the way the book ends. She still has her sister. She still has her friend Carla. And of course, I don't think she's friends with Derek anymore. And Derek ended up getting a divorce back behind this. Um, she just done a lot of stuff, but I'm glad that she's better now and she's getting help and the medication is helping her. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I'm going to read another book or do another book review on another one of her books that I'm going to read next. And I can't wait. So I hope you guys enjoyed this long book review. And yeah, to the next time. Ciao.